Hello, and welcome to the Basics of Grant Writing. I'm Lisa Dodson with the Public Policy and Management Center at Wichita State University. And this presentation is provided through the support of the Recovery Connect COVID-19 Economic Recovery Program, which is a Sedgwick County community initiative. So thank you for joining us today. Topics that we're going to talk about today will be: what is a grant? How do we define them? Where can you go to find grants? What information do you need to have gathered to apply for a grant? What are the parts of a grant proposal? And then I'll share a writing process that I use and some tips for writing grants. So what is a grant? A grant is a non-repayable money given by a funder for a specific purpose. It often requires what we call a match. And this means that if the match is 1-to-1, your organization must provide $1 for every dollar the funder provides. Your match can often be in cash on hand, or for most organizations, it's in-kind contributions. So an in-kind contribution may be employee staff time you contribute, space, equipment that you use, supplies, or funds that are of equal value to the grant funds. So for example, if you have a project that has a 1-to-1 match and you receive $100,000 in grant funds, you will need to find $100,000 in match to make the total project cost $200,000. And we'll be talking today and in future sessions about how you can meet your match through in-kind contributions. So you also want to be very aware of what the guidelines specify. And so one of the first things you want to do when you find a grant that you're interested in is go through the guidelines carefully and determine for what purpose the funds are allowed to be used. Many organizations hear of a grant and say to themselves, what project can we do to get this money? This is the wrong approach. You want to identify projects that move your mission forward and then seek those funders who are interested in helping you. So you don't want to be just chasing the dollars for grants. You want to be working towards mission-driven projects. Begin by identifying those fundable projects in your organization that are perhaps tied to your strategic plan, but definitely embody your mission. Then seek well-matched funding that meets your funder's goals and serves your mission. So the funding out there is usually assigned by a goal that the funder is trying to achieve. Remember that deadlines are really important in grant writing. Most grants have firm deadlines for submissions and they will not change. So if you miss the deadline, you will have to wait another year or until another grant is issued. You want to determine if your organization is a good fit for this funder. When you find a potential grant you're interested in applying for, you want to assess certain things. Most grants are given to nonprofit organizations, 501c3, or to local governments or universities. Funders may restrict their giving to specific geographical areas. For example, they may only fund in locations where they do business or have employees. Be sure to check the grant guidelines to determine if there are limitations on who is eligible. Be sure your program is aligned with the funder's goals. Grants take a significant amount of time for you to write, so you want to have the best possible chance of being funded. So it's critical to make the case that your project aligns with the funder's goals. A grant is a partnership between the grantor and the grantee to achieve a goal. So be careful in the guidelines to determine exactly what the funder is trying to achieve with their funding and tie your proposal to that. Your project should also align with the funder's problem-solving approach. For example, if a funder wants to improve public health through exercise, a project to build a walking trail is more likely to be funded than an informational campaign to promote healthy eating. While both these projects are worthwhile, the funder supports exercise and is less interested in nutrition. So you want to be careful that you do understand what kind of problem they're trying to solve. Then you need to assess whether you can meet the match. The match needs to be identified and noted in the grant proposal. Once you've determined that your organization is a good fit for this grant project or announcement, then you have to assess whether your project will be a good fit. Successful grants for projects that are good fits with the funder's goals. So review the grant guidelines to ensure that you're eligible and your project meets those goals. So project meets the RFP guidelines. So the request for proposal will have guidelines in it, and they will be specific about what it is they want to fund. Be sure your project is achievable with the funding available. If you have a project that is going to cost significantly more than the grant funds, you're going to have to show how you're going to raise the remaining funds in order to effectively utilize the funder's contribution. Unrealistic projects that promise too much will be a red flag to grant evaluators. They know how much things cost, and they expect to see a realistic budget. So be as careful in constructing your budget and assessing the total project cost as you can. Review the guidelines. I'm going to say guidelines frequently in this presentation because they are the instructions that you absolutely must follow to the T in order to be successful for a grant. Most guidelines will tell you the maximum amount of money they will award for a grant. So they will say grants up to $150,000. So if $150,000 is the maximum, you won't be funded for any more money, even if you ask for more. So you have to stay within that boundary. You can ask for less money than the grant funds. If the project costs less than $150,000, then don't try to pad the budget to reach $150,000. Simply put in honestly what the project will take to run it. If you are applying to a foundation for funds, take the time to review the foundation's tax return or Form 990. You can find these free online at GuideStar, and it will allow you to look at how much money the foundation gives away in grants, who gets those grants, and for how much money. And we'll look at that in a little bit. So where can you go to find grants? There are lots of sources to look for grants that will guide you a little bit better than just using Google. Local grants usually are through your city or community organizations and sometimes local businesses. So you can search their websites or contact those entities to see what grants are available. For the state of Kansas, it has a website that lists state grants, and I've listed it here on the slide. The federal government is grants.gov, and that's going to be your source for federal grants. All federal grants will be listed in grants.gov, and you can get those free of charge. Foundations can be community foundations or private foundations. You can Google for these, but in a few minutes, we'll talk about a better way for you to search for foundation grants. Businesses may have foundations that provide grants, and these grants are a different kind of funding than their marketing dollars. So businesses oftentimes will invest or support a project where they think of it in a transactional terms, that I'm going to give you $1,000 to support a table at your fundraising gala, or I'm going to give you X number of dollars to hang banners at your event. Those are different kinds of fundraising than grants. Grants are usually from their foundation, and they are dollars that you can spend. It's not transactional. You probably want to give them credit for contributing, but it will be money you don't have to pay, and it doesn't involve any kind of advertising other than giving them credit for helping fund it. There are some databases that you can subscribe to that are tailored to search for specific types of grants. For example, there's efficientgov.com that you might, if you were a local government, want to think about looking at. But any of those grants that come out that are from government will also be available on grants.gov. So there are lots of subscription services. You would want to look into those carefully and see if you're going to get additional benefit from a subscription service compared to using the free services. I wanted to dig in a little deeper to finding foundation grants. You can search a database called the Foundation Directory. And this is a really good database, but it's not easy to get access to. It is at the Wichita Public Library. You'll need a library card. And if you go up on second floor, you have a chance to use this directory. Librarians are also available there to help you and guide you if you have a little trouble with navigating it. It's really a pretty straightforward database. It allows you to search by region and by type of organization that you're interested in. Libraries also provide you a book-a-librarian who can help you look for grants. So don't forget to use your public library as a really good resource for grants. Not every library subscribes to the Foundation Directory. It's an expensive directory. So you'll want to call ahead to be sure the library you're going to has this resource. But I can tell you for sure that the Wichita Public Library does. Another source you might look at is the Grantsmanship Center. They have a subscription service to search for foundation grants. That might be something that if you were a grant writer and you wanted to dig a little deeper and you wanted to have this delivered to your desktop, you didn't want to have to go down to the public library, it might be worth looking into a subscription service for foundation grants. So thinking back on the Foundation Directory, I wanted to just give you a couple of quick slides to give you the sense or feel of what this directory looks like. So when you go down to the library and you get on the Foundation Directory, you'll see a screen like this, and it will allow you to put in search terms, keywords, like you would with Google. If you want to look under a specific grant maker or funder, say you wanted to look for the Kansas Health Foundation, you could type the organization's name in there. You can put in the geographic focus. I want to only see grants that fund in Kansas. So because this is a national directory, it will pull up grants that maybe you wish you could get, but they're only funding them in Virginia or someplace that they have employees. So you do want to pay attention to whether that grant is, you are eligible based on geography. Where does the grant maker live or reside? Where is their offices? Sometimes sometimes you can put in the population affected. So say you wanted to talk about at-risk youth or some other underserved population that you could put in there, so the grants that are targeted to that population will come up. And then who's who, if you actually know someone serving in an organization and you want to see if they're on a board of certain grants, you can search that. So you hit the search button. After you enter your data, you don't have to fill all of these squares in. You can just fill in one subject area. It depends on how fine you want to filter it. And you'll get a screen that looks like this. And down the side of it here is the grant maker. And we've got here the Kansas Health Foundation. It tells us that it's in Wichita, Kansas. It tells us it has $519 million. Its total giving is $17 million. And it gave out 581 grants. So you can then go dig further down, click on the Health Foundation, find out more information about what types of grants they're funding. And again, that is all free through the public library. Another way you can look for foundation grants is looking at their Form 990. So we saw the Kansas Health Foundation was pulled up on that search. Another one I've worked with before is the Kansas Humanities Council, or I think they've changed their name to Humanities Kansas. But when you find a grant you're interested in and you find who the funder is, the next thing I do is go look at their 990 form. So you can find this 990 free online with GuideStar, and I've given you a link here to click on. I think you have to register for it, but they don't inundate you with junk emails, so it's a pretty good place to search. And you want to pull up their tax form for all tax-exempt organizations. These forms are filed annually, and it provides a really good overview of the organization's activities and its financial information. It'll also tell you who's on their board of directors and who they've given grants to. So you want to look at the Form 990 first to determine the average amount the foundation gives in grants. Sometimes you'll pull it up and you'll see, hey, they haven't given any money out for grants in the last 2 years. I'm not going to bother to approach them. You can also look at who they've given grants to, and it would be, have they given to organizations like your organization? So you can look and see who they donated to and how much they donated. And you can find, as I mentioned earlier, their board, and you may or may not have a connection with those. So I've got a couple of clips from the Form 990, which is the tax form. I suggest that you don't print this out because it's very, very many pages, but you can scroll through it and look at certain sections. And so the Part 1 summary is where I usually start to review. Here you can see that the nonprofit Humanities Kansas received contributions of $906,155 in the current year, and they awarded $315,626 in grants. So I've kind of highlighted that here. Contributions for grants current year, prior year, and here grants and similar amounts paid, current year, prior year. So you see that they've actually given more money in grants in the second year. So the amount of funding they're granting is going up. Another place you want to look, and you'll have to flip through several pages in the 990 till you find Schedule 1, Part 2. And these lists are who received grants from Humanities Kansas and the amount of the grant. So this will give you an idea of what types of organizations receive funding and the average size of the grant that's awarded. So if I was a city and I wanted to apply for a grant, I would anticipate asking for about $10,000 or less based on past grant awards. It appears that Humanities Kansas has rarely given an award over $10,000. So if you look in this section, and I've just taken a couple of clips of it, it will be long because it's all of the grants they gave that year. I see the names of the museums and libraries and historical societies that they have given and the amount of grant. And you can also see the purpose of the grant. It's kind of summary, but it'll give you an idea. Does this foundation fund my type of organization? And about how much money should I ask for? We're going to go now to applying for federal grants, and this is just going to be a big picture overview. And in future sessions, we'll try to dig down a little deeper and give a little more explanation. But when you get ready to apply for a federal grant, the process is a little more complicated. So the first thing you need to do is have an Irs Tax Id number. Most local governments and nonprofits have these issued when they're established, and that gives you tax exempt status. So you do need to have that tax ID number. The second step used to be get a DUNS number, which is a unique identity. It's a unique number to you, and it was a Dun and Bradstreet number. And just recently, April 4th, they've changed their system. So now what you need to get is called a unique entity identifier. And if you have a DUNS number, you will probably be getting notices saying you need to switch over to the UNI or UEI. I'm sorry, I'm getting that wrong. You also need to register with SAM, the System for Awards Management, and I have a link here, and they have very good directions about how to do it. And essentially what that is you're setting up your direct deposit in your bank account from the federal government. So when you get a grant from the federal government, they don't send you a check. They put the money in your account that you have filed with SAM. So SAM is real important. You'll be expected to update it on an annual basis just to be sure that when you're awarded a grant, the money is going into the account you want it to go into. And then you can register with grants.gov. And we'll explain a little bit more about each of these in the upcoming slides. So we're going to start with the SAM number. If you don't have a SAM number, you need to plan ahead because it can take up to 3 weeks to get it. It's a very nerve-wracking thing when you have a federal grant you want to submit and you're waiting around to get the information that you need. So even if you don't immediately have plans to apply for a federal grant, go ahead and get your SAM account set up. It doesn't hurt anything, and hopefully you're going to get a federal grant and be able to take advantage of this. So the SAM number, you need to have your unique identifier number or your UNI. You need to have a legal business name and your physical address. And so this legal business name is what's on your charter. And if you don't have your charter, you can get that from the Secretary of State's office. So for example, I've worked with the Kansas African American Museum. It has to be the Kansas African American Museum. I can't just say Kansas African American Museum. It won't be official. So you have to have exactly the official name. You want to also have your taxpayer identification number. It's called a TIN, and that's the name associated with your TIN. So review your tax documents from the IRS. You can always go pull your 1099 or W-2 form and find your taxpayer name. And that's your legal name. Bank routing number, your bank account number, and your bank account type. So is it a checking or savings? And you're going to set up the electronic funds transfer. So most federal grants are set up so that they direct deposit into your account, and you submit reports, or you may have to spend the money first and then send them receipts or copies of receipts or file a financial report to get the money. Some grants allow you in advance of money. It all depends on the grant. So another important source for grants, we said, is the federal government. And these grants are more competitive because they're nationwide, and they're also typically much larger awards. So you're looking at $100,000 or more for a federal grant. All federal grants can be found at grants.gov, And once you're on that website, there's a really helpful menu that will kind of walk you through how to search, register, apply, and track your grants. I've got a slide here that is designed to kind of give an overview about grants.gov. The first thing they suggest is that you go to their Learning Center for an overview of what grants are. Then they say you check to make sure you're eligible before you apply. You can search federal grants that align with your work, and you can subscribe to communication. And communication will send you any notices about any particular grants you've applied for. And it also pushes out to you almost daily a list of new grants posted. So if you have particular areas of interest, for example, if you are interested in museums, you can select that in grants.gov, and anything that comes out that might be relevant to your topic will be pushed out to you. You need to register with grants.gov using what they call Workspace, and it takes about 1 to 3 weeks for it to get everything to get organized and coordinated. Once you apply, you're going to submit your grant application using Workspace. So Workspace is part of grants.gov. So they've streamlined it now that you're going to look for federal grants and you're going to apply for federal grants all through grants.gov. And then you can track your grant for submission status. So once you've submitted it, you can track where it is at in the evaluation process. So here's a clip of what grants.gov looks like when you get on it. It looks complicated, but it's really not that bad. The area to the left of the screen, the search grants area, it starts with the keyword base, and you can enter keywords to search, or if you have received a grant notification or you're interested in a particular grant, it will have what's called an opportunity number. And if you look to the right, towards the right, at the column that's all highlighted in blue, those are actual grants and links to the proposal for the grant. So if you click on that link, then you'll open that opportunity number and be able to read about the grant. If you're interested in the summary that it provides, then it will give directions on how to go deeper. Down the side here in the search bar, there's also other criteria you can use to filter your grants. Like, are you only interested in grants, not cooperative agreements? Are you interested in all eligibilities, grants to cities or towns or for-profit organizations? So you can filter out, say you're county government and you only want to look at grants for county government. You can filter that out. Then there's a selection of categories you can look at, specific government agencies that issue the grants you can search. So grants.gov is a really helpful tool. Along the top of the toolbar, you'll see that there are lots of informational tabs that I would encourage you to kind of scroll through, particularly the Learn Grants tab. I've been talking a lot about grant guidelines, and I don't have a picture of grant guidelines, but they're usually a multiple-page document that has all kinds of information in it about how you're going to apply for this grant. It will tell you what sections you need to write. It will tell you deadlines. It will tell you the amount of money that you are able to get. So you want to follow the grant guidelines before you apply for any grant. This is a list of the kinds of things that you will see in the grant guidelines, and you want to be cognizant that all of those are questions you need answered before you even start to write. Once you've read the guidelines and you think you have a good project, I recommend calling the program officer. All federal grants have a program officer. Sometimes it's harder to get a hold of the program officer for foundation grants, but federal grants, they're usually pretty good about responding. So call the program officer, ask them if they have a few minutes, they could let you describe your project and give you advice about whether this is a good fit for their grant. They will often give you some really helpful tips on ways to focus the grant narrative, or they may say, this doesn't sound like a project that we would fund with this grant. And that's good to know before you invest a lot of time in writing it. So then you need to develop a project plan. And I've given you a resource here, the Kellogg Foundation Logic Models. Logic models are very helpful tools that help you work with your team or on your own in thinking through a plan. Grant funding is usually tied to well-planned projects. So the more you can put effort into the planning process, the more likely you are to get funded. The Kellogg Foundation offers a free downloadable white paper about logic models. And I've noticed that more and more funders are now requesting a logic model as part of the appendix in their grant. So a logic model is a good tool that can help focus your discussion in a planning group and also help you summarize your project easily for the grant reviewer to look at. This is a simple model I'm going to show you that we used for the Kansas African American Museum. And it summarizes the project that was an African American history trail with multiple museums across the state. So we used it as a project planning tool. It was used for a successful grant application. And this model provides activities and outputs. So it forces you to think exactly what are you going to do in this project and be able to articulate that. Then in this particular model, it had participation. Who were the audiences or who were going to actually do this work? Then we had outcomes, and that was what we hoped to have established from the project. And then we have a column called impact. And I want to say a few words about impact. More and more funders are wanting to know the impact of your project. What difference did you make in that project? Not just count data like we served X number of people, we provided X number of meals. What you want to do is, how did you change things? How did you address what the problem was you were trying to solve? So impact is really becoming important in grants. And finally, this logic model had indicators, and that was, how are we going to evaluate that we achieved our outcome? What tools are we going to use? And it has things like annual partnership meetings, visitor surveys, a variety of things that you can look at to evaluate your success or the things that you have achieved. There are many, many versions of logic models, and you can customize your logic model to meet whatever needs there are in the grant. But generally, they're a one-page or at most two-page document that is an overall summary of your project. And it's also a work plan. So you can kind of see what are the tasks that you need to do. Writing grants involves collecting a lot of information. And I found that if I'm writing a grant for an organization, it's really helpful to give them a list in advance of all the documents that I'm going to need, all the information that will be needed to submit a federal grant. And so what I've got here is 3 categories of documents that you want to collect and keep in a grant file, because you are going to use these things over and over again. And the easier it is to find them, you're not chasing around after them in the middle of writing a grant going, oh my gosh, what date were we incorporated in? So those kinds of details can be gathered in advance. First kind of data that you're going to want is legal data, and that's going to be that federal tax ID number, your EIN or TIN that I mentioned earlier. You're going to have your unique entity identifier, your UIN, your official name. Remember, that's what is in your tax documents or your articles of incorporation. Your date of incorporation for a 501c3. You're going to want to have your congressional district, because when you get that grant, the funder will send a notice to your congressman, and usually you'll get a letter or a call from them going, "Yay, we're so glad you got some money from the federal government." If you have a civil rights contact, you might be asked for that. You might be asked about your equal employment opportunity plan. So you want to have that on hand. And then you might be asked about how you ensure access by persons with limited English proficiency. So those are some new, the last three are some new information that I'm reading that might be required, but I haven't personally run into a grant that has asked for that yet. You also want to get information from your organization that you're going to be asked. You want to know your grant history. What grants have you written in the past and been awarded? Oftentimes it's helpful if you've been awarded local and state grants. That builds a platform for you then to show good stewardship and be eligible for a federal grant. So whatever your grant history is. It doesn't mean that if you haven't gotten any local or state grants that you can't apply for a federal grant. You can, but if you have received previous grants and been successful with those, you would definitely want to be able to mention that in your narratives to show good stewardship. You'll need the list of names of your council and board members. You'll probably be asked to submit those, and that's to help with conflict of interest issues. You'll need to be able to list the key staff and their titles in a grant, so you want to have that on hand. You might be asked to present a summary of your strategic plan or the whole strategic plan, so you want to have that. Your vision and mission will be important to emphasize in your narrative. Any accreditations or certifications that your organization may have, you'll want to be able to mention those in the description of your organization. And then your organization's history. You're almost always going to be asked to introduce your organization. And remember, a federal grant reviewer may not even be familiar with you or have any idea what your role in the community is. So once you write a good organizational history, you want to keep that in your file and pull it out with every grant so that you can adapt it to fit that grant's guidelines. Then you need some financial information in your grant file. You want to have a copy of your audit. If you're a very small nonprofit, you may not have an audit, but you may have a financial committee or something that reviews the books, so you can make notes of that. You want to have a copy of your latest Form 990, and again, that's the tax form for your organization. Your current fiscal year budget you want to have, and then your indirect cost rate. An indirect cost rate is something that's negotiated between your organization and the federal government. So if you're a smaller nonprofit, you probably don't have that. If you're a university or a local government, you probably do have an indirect cost rate. So you want to find out from your financial department what that rate is. So those are the things that I recommend you gather up in advance and keep in a grant file. So when you start to write your grant, you're not running around going, oh dear, what's our indirect cost rate? Or I need a copy of the audit. That can take a significant amount of your time. And so preparing ahead is a good idea. So thinking about what the parts of a grant proposal are, most grants fall into this kind of outline where you have these pieces. They may not all be in this exact order, but they probably are all there. So it looks a little overwhelming, but as we dig down into it, hopefully it will be less intimidating. So your grant proposal packet that you're going to submit through grants.gov will have a cover letter for a foundation or a cover sheet. Federal grants have a cover sheet that you download and fill in. And it's the basic information of things that you've got in your grant file. Then you'll need a one-page summary of the grant usually. And when they say one page, they mean one page. And grants will tell you what size of font you can use, no smaller than 11 point and 1 inch margins. If they say that in your guidelines, you need to stick to that or you will be disqualified. Then you have the narrative piece of the grant, and it has several sections in it. It usually begins with your introduction and your organizational description, and that's your organizational history you hopefully have in your grant file. You pull it out and you just make some edits to it and update it. Then you'll need the problem statement or the need statement, and that's what you're trying to solve. What is the need that you're trying to take care of? You'll be expected to identify some goals or objectives. What are the big things, the big picture things you're trying to achieve? You'll need to address activities and outcomes. Some grants call it methods, and that's described in your logic model, and you can pull that almost directly from your logic model. Then you want to talk about how you're going to evaluate the success of your grant and what impact it has. And the logic model we presented for the Kansas African American Museum, you saw efforts to collect data that could be used in the final grant report to talk about evaluation and impact. And then you'll be asked about sustainability and dissemination. So most grants are some kind of seed money to get a project off the ground for, say, 3 years. Then how are you going to fund that after your grant expires? So you'll be asked to describe how you're going to try to sustain the work. And then dissemination. How are you going to share this with others in the field? And that could be something like presenting it at a conference, making the research available on your website. There's lots of ways to meet the dissemination requirements. The fourth part is usually the budget, and then the budget narrative or the budget notes. And that's going to include not only the funds you're requesting for the grant, but also funds from any other funders and any in-kind donations you might have. And then the last section is usually attachments. And this is very dependent on what type of grant you're writing, but you might have letters of support or commitment from partner organizations or from your mayor or any other entities you think would be worth having a letter from. You'll be asked for resumes of staff and consultants. You might have a logic model in there. You might have architectural plans or drawings. There's any number of types of attachments you might have to support your grant. So this is the big picture of how most grants, the parts of the grant. And just about any funder that you find will have these. They may not be in this order or this category, but there will be something that falls similar to this. Now, what can be included for grant match? I mentioned earlier that every grant, occasionally you'll find a grant that doesn't have a match requirement, but that's pretty rare. And usually it would be a state grant or a foundation grant that's local. Most federal grants have a match requirement. So if you see a 1-to-1 match, it means for every $1 of grant funds you get, you have to have $1 from another source, and it has to be a non-federal source. So it has to be cash that you have on hand or donor contributions. It might be in kind. Most of the time when I work with smaller nonprofits, all of our match is in kind. We don't have any funding available to spare to go towards a match. So we have to find it through in kind. A lot of times it's volunteer hours. If you're using volunteer hours on this project, you want to be sure that it's the going market rate for the job that they're doing. So if you have an attorney on your board who is there stuffing envelopes for your organization's project, you can only charge the attorney's time at the going rate for envelope stuffing, not at their rate for being an attorney. You also want to be careful on volunteers that you document. You want to have them sign for their hours and keep those records in place. So if you ever get audited, you can prove that your volunteers did work those hours. It can also be supplies or transportation you provide. And oftentimes it's the staffing. You are probably paying these staff anyway, whether you do this project or not. So if you get the project funded, they will be assigned to work some of their time on that project, and you can count that time towards your match. You can also count rent or facilities. If you have, even if you have somebody donate the space you're going to have a project take place in, that can be counted as match. Every grant writer has their own method of organizing the way they write grants. And this is mine. I wanted to share this because it will give you just a little bit of an idea of the steps I take when I start writing a grant. But it's not the perfect process. It's not something that everybody uses. So as you write more grants, you'll find your own way to organize your grant writing or your grant team writing. But this is the process I go through when I start. So if you start in the upper left-hand corner, I always start by reading the grant guidelines and read them very thoroughly. Underline, highlight, whatever you need to do, put in margin notes, but make sure that you really and truly understand the guidelines before you set out on trying to write this grant. The next step I do is call the program officer. So as I'm reading through the guidelines, I'll probably have questions that come to mind. And if they're not answered in the guidelines, I want to call the program officer. You don't want to call a program officer if you haven't read the grant guidelines, because you don't want to be wasting their time repeating something that's in the guidelines. So you want to call the program officer, get any questions answered that occur to you as you read the guidelines, and also ask the program officer, I have this idea, or our organization has this idea. Does this sound like something that would be fundable with this grant? And they will give you some very practical, good information about how to proceed. Depending on who you're talking to, you can request for copies of similar grants. Sometimes they will provide that. Sometimes state organizations will share grants that were successful, and it's very helpful to look at other grants. Federal grants, when you go into grants.gov, if it's a grant that's been offered over and over again, you can find some links to narratives that will give you some ideas of what successful grants have done. Once you get copies, if there are copies available of grants, then you have to sit down with your team and really nail down what your problem or need statement is. And that is the so what. What difference is this project going to make? Why should we be doing this? Problems or need statements are harder to write than you might think. But they have to be concise and accurate, and oftentimes use external data to support the issue or the problem. So, for example, if it's homelessness, then you would want to use data that related to homelessness in Sedgwick County and how you want to solve that problem with your project. Then you're going to develop goals, objectives, and activities. And on that logic model I showed you earlier, you are going to have activities and objectives identified probably. So then you just have to write your big picture goals. And you're usually looking at 2 to 4 goals. So these are big things you're hoping, big broad statements you're hoping to accomplish. When you get the project planned out down to the activity level, then you need to build your budget. And sometimes you're doing this kind of simultaneously. As you're thinking through the project and the activities you're going to do, you're also thinking about the costs of doing those activities. So you want to build an accurate, honest budget and be realistic with it. After you get your needs statement, your goals, objectives, and activities, and your budget together, now you're ready to sit down and write the narrative. And the narrative, when we looked at that outline, has several parts to it. So when you write the narrative, you want to look at your guidelines and you want to make your headings and sections like it describes in the guidelines. So I gave you an outline of a grant, but that's just the components that you're going to find in every grant probably. The order that those components go in will be dictated by what it says in the guidelines. And after I get the narrative written, it's pretty easy to write the summary. That's just going to be kind of the wrap up of the project. Then I write the cover letter or fill out the cover sheet that is required for a federal grant. Then you put the proposal all together in the order that the guidelines tell you to. And on a federal grant, you will have certain forms that you submit, and you will probably have descriptions of how to label the files that you're going to upload. So you'll want to look at that in the guidelines. Then I take it to other people and ask them to read it. And these could be your peers, but it's also helpful to have somebody who's really not that familiar with your work read it, because they will highlight for you things that maybe need clarification or terms that you've used that a reviewer might not be familiar with. And so after I get other people's input, I usually rewrite and then you submit, and hopefully you're funded. You will have to wait quite a long time. Usually when you submit a grant, it's months, not days. So it will take quite some time for you to find out whether you're awarded the grant. Whatever you do, don't start spending the money before you hear that you've been awarded the grant and you get the grant assurances. So when you do get a grant, you'll get something called grant assurances that you have to sign. And in that, it will be very specific about everything. Like you need to give credit to this organization for this funding. Here's the logo you have to use when giving credit. So it will be very specific. I want to wrap up here with some tips for grant writing. And as you write grants yourself, you will find things that you feel are really important to focus on. But these are just a few common things that we recommend. The first is you always want to write in third person, not first person. So you're talking about an organization, so you want to be sure you're in third person. Use the section headings that match the guidelines. So I mentioned earlier, guidelines are really important. You want to use the headings that they tell you to use, and I usually bold those headings so that when the grant reviewer is scoring the grant, they don't have to look all through the grant to find that topic. It's right there in front of them. Their score sheet is usually going to be organized the same way the headings in the grant guidelines are organized. Use numbered and bulleted lists. Leave some white space on the page. It's really kind of intimidating when you sit down to read a grant and it's 15 pages of 11 size font, line after line after line. And I understand that you want to get everything in, but sometimes being cognizant of who's reading it and what makes it easy to read is helpful. So use those lists. Keep your paragraphs short, 5 to 7 sentences. You're going to have to work hard to scope your text down to be short and concise. Use boldface or italics for emphasis, but underline sparingly. Usually underlining sometimes means a link to a website, so we don't use that much. Don't exceed your page limits and font size, and use only one font type. It's hard on eyes to look at lots of different font types, so be consistent with that. If it says your narrative has to be 12 pages, they mean it's 12 pages. And if it's longer than that, they'll either throw all the pages after number 12 away before they give it to the reviewer, or they will just throw your whole grant out. So don't lose your opportunity by trying to push the rules. They will tell you font size and type also. Use simple but powerful and descriptive words. So writing a grant is important to not just like you would write a work memo, but you're telling a story. So you want to use words and descriptions that help convey the story. Sometimes people give better when there's a little bit of an emotional pull. So that's why it's always easy to raise money for children and pets, but it's pretty hard sometimes to raise money for a fence you need or a broadcast tower for the public television station. Those kinds of things are a little harder to raise money for. So remember that you're telling a story with your grant writing. Ask others to read it for clarity. We've already mentioned that. Know who will be the grant evaluators. Sometimes that's hard to find out, but if you call the program officer, they'll probably let you know. If it's being evaluated by peers, then you're safer using the jargon that's common for that project. But if it's being evaluated by people other than peers, you want to be sure that you're careful with your jargon and you explain everything. Be realistic with your budget requests. We've talked about that a little bit. And I can't emphasize this enough. Plan ahead and submit early. Things can go wrong. You can be at the last minute trying to submit and you can't get the software to work, or any number of problems. So if you give yourself a little bit of extra time to get that grant submitted, you're safer. Grants will not pay for a grant writer. I've had several people in the past ask me if I would write a grant for them and then they would pay me when they got the grant. You can't legally do that. That's called supplanting. So you can only pay for things that the grant approves and only after you've received the grant. And in some grants, you have to send bids into them before you pay for something. Now, grants will pay for an independent evaluator. Most of them will. So if you want to, when we talk about that measuring impact, having an independent evaluation is very helpful. And then you can use that to leverage asking for additional funding. So they will pay usually up to 15% of the grant for you to hire an independent evaluator for your project. Also, use your evaluation to find future funding. I mentioned that you want to keep a track of all the grants that you've received, because when you write your description of your organization, you want to include that so that whoever is reading it understands that you have successfully managed grants in the past. After you get the grant, or especially if you don't get the grant, ask for the evaluator comments. They can be really helpful. And if you get those grant evaluator comments and you have not received the grant, you were denied, take those evaluator comments and rewrite it and resubmit it next year. It's a lot of work to write a grant. You want to get as much mileage out of it as you can. So don't be afraid to kind of recycle it and try again, either with another foundation or with the government's program again. Lots and lots of times, grants that have been rewritten and resubmitted are funded the second round. Finally, just a few resources here. Grantsmanship, program planning and proposal writing by Norton Kritz. This is available off of Amazon. I think it's about $40. It's a really pretty good book for those of you that are starting out writing grants, in terms of giving you some valuable, easy to understand and read information about grants. The Grantsmanship Center is a nationally known center for grant writing. They do a grant writing course, and they also do a federal grant writing course. I've taken both those courses. I took the in-person ones. They were a week long each, and they were very good. They also are doing some online ones now too. So that's another resource you can look into. That concludes my introduction to grants. I hope you find that helpful. The next one will be building grant budgets, so watch for that soon. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you in some face-to-face and future online courses. Bye.